back and better than ever. And this guest probably needs no introduction as I've gotten to talk with him before, but I'll give you a quick rundown if this is the first time you've actually gotten a chance to meet him. He is the executive director over at Transamerica. He is a former bull rider, no longer at his ripe old age now. And he's taken a few companies public. He's also been the executive leadership program developer for both Microsoft, Orbitz, Oracle, you name it. But most importantly, and the one that I always love, is he's the guy that ate McDonald's for 100 straight days and lost 60 pounds. So I'm bringing my good friend and special guest to the stage here today, Mr. Kevin Maginnis. I'd like to add you here.
Hey, Dan.
How you doing today?
Outstanding. Thank you for that introduction. Appreciate that. And it's funny that, 30 years of coaching, training, developing people at the highest levels, no notoriety, but you eat half a Big Mac on TikTok and become world famous. And that's what everybody wants to talk about. So, yes.
It's exactly right. It's amazing what people find the most interesting. Just wild stuff. But Kevin, I brought you in today because, well, hey, I want to grill you on this new thing everybody's talking about. A lot of people have been calling it like the next gen 401k. But it's really an IUL, and an IUL, for people just kind of tuning in or getting up to speed on this, IUL means Index Universal Life Insurance. I know you and I were talking about this in our prior session a few weeks ago that went a good few hours. So if anybody wants to get some popcorn and a beer, tune in for that. But really, really, where we had to stop, even though we could have been going so much longer had my computer not died, was okay. Insurance has an underlying thing called insurance, which means you're paying for some form of fees. And for myself and my audience that I want to make sure better understands this, is my hypothesis, and I believe a lot of people's hypothesis, is the life insurance fees will actually eat your investment dollars alive. So it would actually make more sense to just keep putting money into a 401k. Even though I've also uncovered why the 401k was originally created and all that stuff, I still believe, since we've all been told we should be doing it, I should continue to be doing it with the 401k, just because their fees might be lower. But I know, hey, you might have a different perspective. You might help us think differently. And I'm all about a growth mindset here. So I'd love to grill you with some questions, but at the same time, I'd like for you to try and educate me and my audience. How's that sound?
I think that's a great idea. And I love how you said, I still think the 401k, many people still have that mindset. They have that little voice on your shoulder saying, oh, the 401k, just like people have been told to pay their house off over and over and over again. And you and I have had that conversation where putting an extra dollar to a mortgage to pay off a 2% or 3% mortgage when that money can be earning you 10, 12, 15%,
Yeah.
it makes no sense. And yet we've been told something over and over and over ad nauseum until we begin to believe it, because there's just so much social proof out there, until we actually look at where did that come from,
Yeah.
and what are my options we can lay out side by side. So I would love for you to ask me any questions on it. And my favorite concern of all is when someone says, I'm concerned that the costs are going to outweigh the benefits of doing an indexed account. And my question always back to them at that point is, now that you understand the benefits, because in the last conversation we talked about all the benefits: high returns, no risk, meaning the market crashes, you cannot lose a dime, grow tax free, take it out tax free, being able to double dip on your dollars, use the same dollar twice. With all those benefits, if you get all those benefits and have zero cost, if there was no, other than cost, is there any other reason you wouldn't want all those benefits? And of course, most people, when I ask that question, are like, well, no. If there was no cost, then of course I would love to have those benefits. But I've heard the costs are too high, so, and that's why I asked that question. If there was no cost, is there any other reason you wouldn't want to do it? If I can narrow it down to cost being the only thing stopping them, I'm going to show you in the next few minutes 5 different ways there is literally no cost to the client for these accounts. The net cost is zero to the client when these accounts are structured correctly. Now, don't get me wrong. There are companies out there, there are individuals out there who don't structure them correctly. And when they're not structured correctly, they can devastate someone's financial picture. So you definitely want to be with a professional who knows how to structure them correctly and make sure that they're reducing the fees and showing you the ways it's completely cost free, net zero cost to you to have one of these.
Yeah.
So I'm more than happy to jump in and answer that now, unless there's other questions you want to peel back before I kind of give you some examples of.
I think that's most important because I want to get clear on these fees because I know they say this next gen type of 401k beats a traditional 401k 100 times out of 100 times. But I know a lot of the smart financial advisors will all say a well structured next gen 401k will beat a 401k 100 times out of 100 times. So I think that's where we need to make sure it's well structured and that
Right.
talks about these fees, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And 100 out of 100 times where it's suitable for someone. Something has to be suitable, has to be a right fit for someone. Someone who's 90 years old on their deathbed, this isn't where they should be saving their money.
Yep.
Somebody who's in that growth phase still, that's reasonably healthy, or they have someone in their family who's reasonably healthy that can go on the account with them. When it's suitable for that family, absolutely, side by side, I'll stack it up against any 401k out there, any 401k side by
Yeah,
side.
I remember that
Yeah.
now because you mentioned that yes, this thing is amazing, but not everybody qualifies for it, and that's where you just mentioned the healthy factor, or like say if
Reasonably healthy,
yeah
correct. Yeah,
somebody's fine.
there's things we can work with, but there's got to be reasonably healthy, or someone we can put on the account with them who's reasonably healthy to
Yeah.
make sure they qualify for one of these accounts, because there is a qualification process.
Okay.
But
So
where it's
that's
suitable
why.
and they qualify, then I'll stack it up side by side with just about anything, let alone 401k or anything else. That, again, not that someone should have it as the only thing in their portfolio, but you can't come up with a logical reason why a person shouldn't have this as a part of their portfolio. And
Yeah.
I'll let people make that own decision themselves as we go through the numbers today.
And again, refresh me before we get into the fees. Why? I know when we talked about this in the last conversation, only 5% of people had really known about this. Why do you think there's just such limited knowledge? Is it because, again, people hear insurance, they think fees, all right, forget about it, I'm not talking about it? Or what else could be why 95% of people don't know this?
Yeah, a couple of reasons. Number one is that a person has to be licensed in the industry to be able to have the conversation. So the
Mm.
average financial professional even doesn't have the licenses required to be able to even have the conversation. Number two, most financial professionals get paid every time they can transact money, every time they can do a transaction, anytime they can get you to move money from one place to another place to another place, they're getting compensated every time they can do that. When you use one of these indexed accounts or an IUL, it's a set it and forget it. You don't have to keep moving the money. So there's no recurring, I get paid over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
So most financial advisors or the firms they work with don't like that functionality. They want to be able to get paid over and over again on a client. Our mindset is do the right thing the first time and get referrals to other clients. You
Yeah.
don't need to keep gouging a client over and over again.
Yep.
Let's make sure that the client is taken care of, do the right thing for them, and they'll let other people know about that. But to your point, just the word insurance, there's so many misconceptions or misunderstandings about, oh, insurance means it's a whole life policy. I've got to keep paying a premium for my whole life, which is not true.
Yeah.
There's other just misinformation out there on what things used to be, and people still think that it's the same as it used to be. And there's even companies that know that it's not, but they still teach it as if it's like it used to be. Your
Mm-hmm.
cell phone 10 years ago used to have a hinge on it.
Yeah.
Right? Your cell phone today is completely different. It's a technology is completely transformed what else you can use that phone for.
Yeah.
The financial industry has completely transformed what these vehicles are able to do, but there's a lot of people who are still talking about it as if it's a flip phone.
Yeah.
So it's just lack of education. But the companies that are teaching their agents to continue that old conversation don't want their agents to understand the product or recommend the product because it's a lower profit product for the industry. The client is getting the high returns. When the market does 10, 12, 20, 40%, the client is getting that 40% return on their money instead of in some of those other products where if the market did 40%, the companies would dictate that the client still only got 3 to 6%, and
Yep.
the companies would keep all that profit. So the companies, a majority of the companies out there don't even want their reps to be able to talk about it, and they certainly don't have the products to go to the marketplace with. Versus the companies that we recommend have realized you don't need to make $5 per bag of French fries. If you
Yeah.
make 50 cents per bag of French fries, but move millions of French fries,
Yeah.
you cause lots of heart attacks. That's a terrible analogy, but you get the idea. You get the concept of it.
Yeah. No, I mean, this definitely makes sense. And actually, I can speak to that personally of my experience. And I know I mentioned in the past of, uh, drinking the company Kool-Aid while I was an intern at Northwestern Mutual many moons ago. And I did $3,000 a year for 12 straight years. So I paid $36,000 in premium. And it coincided with the 210% stock market growth. And looked at it in year 12, and I had grown my cash surrender value to a whopping $38,000, meaning I made $2,000 in profit. And that's where I
Two
ultimately
thousand
found you.
dollars
Yeah,
after 210% growth in the market. You made $2,000 in profit. That's
huge,
amazing.
huge. Yeah, right. And I called up my Northwestern Mutual rep and I was like, listen, I want to get into an IUL, and they said we don't offer that product.
Nope.
And so now I understand all these things. But all right, let's get into the actual fees then, because
Yes.
now people understand that a whole life insurance policy is not the same as an index universal life insurance policy. So we
Right.
are talking about an index universal life insurance policy. And when financial
Correct.
advisors always say buy term and invest the difference, it's because they're talking about whole life insurance. They're not talking about index universal life insurance. Now when people are talking
Unfortunately,
about,
if you ask them directly, they'll still say it against IULs as well because again, they don't have them. They don't have the ability, and they still think that they're the same. They don't have the licenses, so they've never been trained on how they actually work. So even if you ask them directly, majority of them would still say, "Oh no, you want to buy term and invest the difference," because they don't understand, and their company's not teaching them.
yeah,
They're not putting them through the training because they couldn't offer them if they wanted to because their
yeah,
companies don't have that product as part of their portfolio.
yeah,
So what we'll go over today is how they actually work.
yeah,
So even if you're a financial professional watching this, you're going to learn some things about how these products actually work, not the misinformation that's out there. And then
yeah,
a person can make an informed decision by laying something side by side. It's always compared to what? Whenever you're going to put a dollar into something, there's costs, fees, expenses, market risk, and taxes. Costs,
mm-hmm,
fees, expenses, market risk, and taxes.
yep,
If you can reduce the cost, fees, expenses, if you can reduce the market risk or eliminate, if you can reduce or eliminate the taxes, then any dollar you put in is going to have a higher growth rate. So at the end of the day, all you're looking for is for a dollar in, I want the biggest dollar out I can possibly get. That's all we're ever looking for. If I put a dollar in, after ups and downs, market risk, taxes, costs, and fees,
yeah,
what's going to give me the biggest dollar out? That's what we're going to look at side by side and let a person be able to go, oh, whether the market was going up, whether the market was going down, whether the market was going the same, which one of these accounts would have done better for me?
yeah,
And if in all three of those scenarios, account A is better than account B, makes that decision pretty easy at that point. So
for sure.
let's jump into
All right, cool. Let's do it. Let's attack some fees because I'm ready to see if this actually makes sense.
it. All right, I'm going to share my screen out here.
Okay.
One second.
I'll try to get it on there.
All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump into an actual little presentation first, and we'll actually go to a spreadsheet and look at it side by side. And as we look at this, I'm just looking at a client in this case who's 29 years old,
Okay.
who's wanting to put away a couple $100s a month at first. And then over time, they're going to want to bump that up to $400, but never more than $600. So they're
Okay.
putting money into that account. And by the time they've put that in, they've at the age 65, you can see at the bottom there that they've got $618,000 in their account. So this is just showing you, and you should see my screen where it says 5 ways your indexed account is zero
Yep.
cost. You just want to make sure technology is working correctly. All right.
Yep. Our faces are just covering the 5 ways part, but I'll put us in the top left so that you can demo away.
All right. So as we look at this, by the time you're 65, that person has $600,000. We just saw it was 618, but I'm just rounding it to
Mm-hmm.
600,000. If that money is making 10% and you're taking 10%, that means you're taking out $60,000 a year out of that account,
Mm-hmm.
and it's tax advantage, meaning it grew tax free and you get to take that money out tax free.
Sure.
So from 65 to 75, you'll take out $600,000 a year tax free out of that account.
Yep.
From 75 to 85, another 60,000 times 10 years is another 600,000. So that means you got 1.2 million that's been distributed out of that account. The balance, the money that was in the account when we pass away, that money passes on outside of probate and income tax free. So that goes to our family. Plus, in this case, there's a wrapper of protection around that account of $200,000. So if you add all that up, that's $2 million that this account has paid out. The total amount of money in was $200,000. Is actually 178,000 if you saw
Yeah.
the screen earlier.
Yep.
Less than 200,000 in to take $2 million out. So that's the baseline we're starting from to now have the conversation around the costs and fees on this.
Yeah.
So I'm going to
I mean that.
clear.
So that's awesome because I know people always talk about 10x. Grant Cardone in real estate talks about 10x. This seems to be kind of a 10x type thing of money in versus output.
Correct. Yeah, and that's usually about the number for as a person funds money in. they're going to get 10x, or depending on how much they're putting in and how they're leveraging the account, they can actually end up much higher than that. But remember, that has the guarantees of no risk on this account. The money can only go up, never go down to market risk.
Yeah.
But to get all those benefits of high returns, no risk, no taxes on the growth or distribution, there are some costs. So let's take a look at the costs, but then we're going to look at how the account covers those costs for you.
Hmm.
So as a person puts money into the account, so $200 goes in, for example, part of that money is going to go to, it's called a premium expense. That premium expense is, if a person's putting in $200, they shouldn't have the same fees as somebody who's putting in $2,000 a month. So they
Okay.
base that off of the premium going in this case, $7. Cost of insurance, to have that protection in place, there in this example, there's $50. Well, that's the average cost of insurance over that client's lifetime. It's not just, oh, they're paying $50 for $200,000 of protection at age
Yeah.
28. No, that's an average cost over the entire lifetime of that. Then there's $10 for admin. That's your customer service, being able to call in, get reports, pull account balances, all of those types of things. So at that point, that waterfall that the $200 has gone through, there's $133 left over to go into that indexed account. And if we just stop there, which is what other companies will do, they'll say, oh, look at all the fees that came out. You only
Yeah.
have $133, forgetting about all the benefits that are about to happen on that account. But
Yeah.
that's the actual breakdown of the real costs in this account. So let's take a look at how it pays for itself. 5 ways it's completely cost free. The first way is, let's say you were buying a house and you go to buy the house, and when you buy the house, you bought it for 200,000, but then you sold the house immediately the next day for only 150,000.
Hmm.
Well, what was the cost of that house? Cost is loss. So
Yep.
that house cost you $50,000.
Okay.
Just, let's say we're doing owner finance, you were carrying that, right? Just take all the other stuff out of the way. You put in 200,000, you sold the next day for 150, you lost $50,000. Are you tracking with me so far?
Yep. I tracked there. Yep.
What if we bought a house for 200,000 and we sold it the next day for 200,000? What was our cost on that house?
Well, zero.
Zero, exactly. What if we bought a house for 200,000 and sold it for $2 million?
Yep.
Our cost is still zero. It actually paid us 1.8 million. Are you
Hmm.
tracking with me?
Yep.
Well, isn't that what happened on the right hand side of the screen? Didn't we put in $200,000 and get to take $2 million out for us and our family? So the
Yeah.
first way it's cost free is just like buying a house. Yes, I had a cost, but the benefit of that account so far outweighed it, covered its cost and paid me an extra 1.8 million. So there was literally net zero cost to me to buy that house in this example, or to have this account.
So that makes sense. I guess a quick question or clarifier here.
Uh-huh.
So on the right hand side, we're getting that 200,000 in $2 million out, but
Yep.
that seems to be a rather long timeline, right? Because that went from
Correct.
29 to 65, and then from 65 to 85 was the harvest years, and then you pass
Yes.
on. With buying the house here, I feel like that might be a faster timeline. Although you're probably not going to get $1.8 million in profit on a house in the next.
Right. So how long would you have to wait on a $200,000 house for that $200,000 house
Yeah.
to grow to $2 million in value? Wouldn't that take a while as well?
Yeah, probably. Okay, so I might have just answered my own question here of isn't it faster to make money with the house? But yeah, okay, got it.
Right? Because now crazy markets at times, but even then, you're not going from 200,000 to 2 million in a 5 year period, right?
Yeah,
It's going to take you time. But there are people who own little shacks in California that are now worth 2 million, but they've
yeah,
had the house for 30 years, right? And
yeah,
the house is, that little 3 bedroom, 2 bath house that's now worth 2 million. That it's been in the family for 30 years.
sure.
All right. So the second way, there's zero cost on this, is when we pass on, when we pass away. 100% of the money that we've paid in passes on to my family.
Okay.
So people talk about buying term. Hey, buy term and invest the difference. 97% of all term policies never pay a benefit to a client.
Hmm.
The person doesn't die during the 10-year, 20-year, 30-year. 97%
Yeah,
of the time, the insurance company never has to pay a dime out to anyone. So in term insurance, while it seems inexpensive, is the most profitable insurance for the insurance companies.
hmm.
Let's think about that for a second. If you were a table manufacturer and you made tables and sold them online, and 100 people bought tables, but only 3 of them ever came to pick them up, you only had to make 3 tables for the 3 people that came and picked them up.
Yeah.
You got paid for 97 tables that you never had to make.
Yeah.
That would be a pretty profitable business, wouldn't it?
That'd be really profitable. That'd be nice.
That's literally how term insurance works, because it's not that term insurance is bad. It gives you peace of mind. It just never pays out a benefit 97% of the time. That people don't die during that term. And then when their term is up, that 30-year term is up, they're older. The cost to get a new term insurance policy is dramatically higher and they can't afford it. So
Yeah.
when they're most likely to need insurance, they're going to pass away soon. They can't afford to keep it. So they don't even have insurance in place
Yeah.
when they go to pass away.
Yeah.
Versus 100% of the time when we put money into an indexed account, it always has this wrapper of protection. And any cost that I paid, that's the first thing that's getting paid out. And then the company is going to pay the balance out of their reserves to that client. So 100% of the time when I die, my family, now I don't like number two because I have to pass away for my family to get the money back. But I
Sure.
like the fact that 100% of my money is going to go back. So another way, it's zero cost. All of my cost is refunded back to the family when I pass away. Again, don't
Okay.
like that one, but it happens. So, of the two options of not getting it or getting it, I'd rather have my family 100% of the time
Yeah.
get 100% of the cost
For sure.
versus 97% of the time never getting a dime back.
Okay. Got it.
Number three, zero tax. The tax benefits
Ooh.
alone completely cover the cost.
Okay.
So
Let's see.
when we look at the total costs of this account, if you're putting money in, let's say a person puts in 1,000 deposits of that $200 a month,
Okay.
which would be crazy, by the way. If you put in it for 1,000 months, 1,000 months equals 80 years. Nobody puts in 80 years of payments into their IUL or anything else. You
Okay.
start when you're 30, you stop when you're 65, right? You're not putting in for 80 years.
Yep.
1,000 deposits, but even if you did, and the cost of insurance averages at $50 a month, the worst case scenario, 1,000 times that $50 would be the worst case scenario. Would have $50,000 in cost
Okay.
on that account. Well, when you go to take money out, the 60,000 a year that you're taking out, just in today's tax bracket, you'd be paying over $15,000 in taxes. So in the first 4 years of retirement, you'd pay $60,000 in taxes out of your 401k, your IRA, your KEO, your
Mm.
SEP IRA. You'd be paying $60,000 in taxes. But because the money in this account grows tax free and take it out tax free, you're not paying any taxes on that distribution. Which doesn't that mean that it just completely covered all of its cost just in the first 4 years of tax savings alone? It
Yeah.
has completely covered your lifetime cost on having that account. So
Hmm.
again, that's just the first 4 years. You're literally going to be able to continue that for the rest of your retirement, but just your first 4 years tax savings alone equals zero cost on the
Okay.
account.
So I'm tracking here. So I know you mentioned it's always cost, fees, expenses, market risks, and taxes. So this one is the taxes portion.
Completely
And
covers its costs. Correct.
yeah, okay. I
Yep.
see that now. I see that because you're paying your taxes now. You're paying for the seed, not the harvest.
You're paying for the seed, not the harvest, and because you already paid tax on the dollars, all the taxes get to grow tax free, and you get to take them out tax free.
Yep.
Which that tax savings alone completely offsets 100% of the cost. So I have a choice. I'm either going to give all my money give all that money to taxes later on, or I could have used that money to buy a wrapper of insurance that
Hmm.
actually gives my family a benefit.
Yeah.
So that wrapper of insurance gives me living benefits. If I get a heart attack, stroke, cancer, diabetes, I actually get to use that wrapper of insurance while I'm alive.
Hmm.
Or if I do pass away, that insurance plus all the cash is going to pass on to my family. So
Yeah.
I could pay 60,000 and get nothing for it, or I could pay 50,000 and actually get something for it. High
Yeah.
returns, no risk, right? All the benefits. So of my options, I'd rather get something for that money than get nothing for it.
Yeah. I love
Now,
my
don't get me
family too.
wrong. Yeah, don't get me wrong. I don't mind paying taxes. I know everyone's like, I hate paying taxes. I don't mind paying taxes. I like having paved roads. I like having police officers and firefighters in case something happens to my family. But if there's an honest, ethical tax deduction, if there's an actual tax deduction if you buy a house and when you pay your mortgage payment, they let you write that off,
Yeah.
to not take the tax deduction doesn't make you a better citizen. That makes you
Okay.
silly.
Yep.
because the government's getting other benefits. They're giving you that to incentivize you to be a homeowner,
Yep.
because if you're a homeowner versus a renter, you had to have a bigger down payment, you had to have a better income to justify it. You have that income, they're going to get more income tax, they're going to charge you property tax,
Yeah.
you're buying more things, so you're paying more sales tax. So because they're giving you a tax break in one area, they're making it up somewhere else.
Hmm.
So to not take the tax deduction on your mortgage would be silly.
Yeah.
Same thing here. If I have a tax break, if I'm able to put in money into an account and have it grow tax free and take it out tax free, to not take that is silly. I want to take every legal, honest, ethical tax deduction I'm allowed.
Yeah.
Make sense?
Yeah. It makes sense. I mean, I know this may not be tied to an IUL thing here, but Kevin, I'm not sure if you've read Tom Wheelwright. You know who he is?
That one's not ringing a bell.
He is actually the CPA for Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Oh, okay.
And so he helped Robert Kiyosaki recognize a lot of tax advantages. And so um, this is me being a nerd, but I read one of his, I think it's called Tax Free Wealth Strategy books or something like that.
Okay.
And the line that stuck out to me is he said 95% of the tax code written by the US is for the benefit of business owners and entrepreneurs. It is not
Yes.
actually developed to punish you. That's only like the 5% that everybody thinks about, on tax day.
Yeah.
Um, so, yeah, I mean, I'm with you on it. Should we pay taxes? Yes. But should we overpay on taxes? No. We just need
There
to be
you
more
go.
intelligent with what we are paying taxes for.
Absolutely. And leverage the tools that the wealthy use to get the same tax benefits that the wealthy are getting.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. Which is why I know
I,
this is called the rich man's retirement vehicle. So keep going. I'm ready for
Yeah,
number four.
rich person's Roth IRA, because Roth IRAs, for example, have limits. If you make too much money, you can't put it in, and
Yeah.
there's maximums to how much you can put in per year. Structuring an IUL correctly, there is no maximum. If a person wants to put a
Yeah.
million, 2 million, 5 million a year in, we can structure it that way. If somebody wants to put $100, $200 a month in, we can structure it and reduce the costs on it. Make sure you're maximizing it, getting the maximum value out of it.
Yep.
That's why having someone structure it correctly is really important. Notice that this isn't $1 million life insurance policy. There's only $200,000 of protection on this, because we
Yeah.
want to keep the cost as low as possible while getting the maximum value out of this account as possible.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. Okay.
All right. Fifth year. By the fifth year in this account, on average, depending on how much money more, someone funds more in faster, they're going to get there sooner. Someone puts smaller amounts in longer, they're going to get there a little bit later. But on average, about the fifth year, the interest the account is making completely covers 100% of its costs. So let's take a look at this. Here's an actual illustration. So you're noticing credited interest, that interest being credited every year. By the fifth year, it's being credited, just the money that's in the account already, it's being credited $887. The cost of insurance that year is only $727. So the growth of the account is earning more than the cost of the account. It's completely covering the cost of it. It's like you park your car at night and it fills itself up with gas, makes its car payment for you. It has zero cost. It's a self-sufficient account. And you're like, but yeah, but Kevin, as you get older, doesn't the insurance cost go up? Notice what happened on year 11. You got a safe driver discount. You didn't
Hmm.
die during the first 10 years. So it actually dropped costs later on. It was like, oh, the cost always goes up. That's not true. Again, misinformation out there. But even
Interesting.
so, the growth of the account is continually getting larger because your account balance is getting larger. So it's covering all of its costs and putting all this excess interest.
Yeah.
Plus, any new payments you put in are going into the heart of the savings, because the growth of the account is already covering its costs. If you didn't put a dime in, it's self-sufficient. You have free insurance at that point, but you also have a free bucket that
Yeah.
any dollars you put in are going right to the heart of that savings vehicle. They didn't have to go through that waterfall because the costs are already covered. So again, this is not a short-term 1 year type of an account. You want to have this account and have a mindset of at least 5 years with it. But isn't your 401k, your IRA, your Q, aren't those that kind of mindset anyway? So this is an alternative where you're redirecting dollars into something dramatically better for the client. But by the fifth year, it is a cost-free account because of the growth happening inside of it.
Okay, that actually does make sense to me then, because that was one of my major concerns. Because I'll be honest, I look at I have an IUL. Most people know I have an IUL, and I think I'm actually now in like year four or something like that. So I'm still not at that break even yet, but I'm getting close to it, and I know also that the market dropped 25% just in 2022. I can't say last year now because we're 2024 now,
Right?
but I was at least protected there. So
You didn't lose a dime, did you? When the
it,
market dropped, you did not lose a dime.
correct. So I get it now. I'm really looking forward to hitting that year five thing. And I guess if I'm thinking about it as an employee, if I'm at a employer, a lot of the times I have a vesting schedule from a retirement account.
Yeah,
And most of the times it's after year five that you really get to be fully vested. So
right.
I want to similar to, I want to say this, your fourth plank here. I need to figure out where I am on the screen. Your
Yep.
fourth plank here is actually similar to like if you're at an employer and you're getting a vesting schedule. Year five is really
Great way,
when you
great way
start.
to look at it. Yeah,
Okay, got it.
great. Yep. Now the fifth one is my favorite one, but it doesn't. It's not really. They're all my favorite, but I like the fifth one a lot, and that is because there is zero market risk. There is zero cost in this account for someone.
Yep.
So what's that mean? Let's say you're 65 years old. We've grown the $600,000 in the account. Is it safe to say from 65 till 85 or 95 or whenever you finally pass
Yep.
away that from 65 through retirement that the market's going to keep doing what the market's always done? It's going to have some ups and downs
Yep.
between then and the time you finally pass away. Is
Yeah.
that safe?
Yes.
Well, if all this account did, let's say that's a 10% drop right there. If all the account did was protect you from one 10% drop during retirement,
Mm-hmm.
what's 10% of 600,000?
60,000.
So if the total cost, worst case, if you made 1,000 deposits, you paid for 80 years, if the worst case on the cost is 50,000 in cost, and it just protected you from a $60,000 drop in the market,
Mm-hmm.
didn't it just completely cover all of its costs in one fell swoop?
Yes.
But
Yes.
it's not going to protect you from one 10% drop. It's
Correct.
going to protect you from every 10% drop, 20% drop, 30% drop, 40% drop. You're never going to feel a single one of those because the money can only go up, never go down to market. This doesn't even take into account all the times it protected you on the way. Like you said 2 years ago, it
Yeah.
protected you from 26%. This is just looking at retirement. But if all it did was protect you from one 10% drop
Yeah.
during retirement, didn't it just completely cover 100% of its costs?
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, okay. Yes, 100%. And I can firsthand vouch for that because that just happened legitimately 2 years ago. And
Right?
I know it happened in '01 and '08 as well. And those were like 40% losses. So I get it. I think a lot of us, maybe younger people like myself, we didn't really maybe experience '08 that badly.
Right.
And so we had like a good 12-year run. We're just like, man, the stock market's awesome. Let's buy some meme stocks. And realistically, I think we've now finally taken that punch. Um, Now we still probably have 30 more years until we get to retire, but hopefully, at least for me, my learning experience was okay. I no longer really trust the market. I want to get into more secure things that can give me just as much growth. I know a lot of people, especially like my parents' generation, when they would leave their 401k, they try and move into bonds. um, but my understanding, and I've played around on some calculators, which I'm happy to share with others, like Money Chimp. You move into bonds, those are like a 4% return, keeping up with inflation. Even if inflation gets to 3%, you're only really making 1%. So like that doesn't help you have good savings in retirement. Um, so I'm picking up what you're putting down essentially.
You're smelling what I'm cooking. It smells pretty good.
Yeah,
All right, so let me give you another example. So this is a well, Kevin, concept wise, sounds pretty good, but
sure.
it's not really showing me 100% of my act because there's still real costs, Kevin. What's the actual cost? I understand how it's covering its costs, but I
Yep.
want to see the total cost of having it. Right, that's a common thing that can
Oh,
happen.
absolutely.
But concept wise, I think everyone would be on the same page at this point. And one of the questions I ask people is, so I've got Joe and Mary. We're having a conversation. I ask them,
Yeah.
so of those 5 ways, the 5 ways it completely covers its costs, which one do you like the best? And whichever one they say, I say me too, because they all stack. Because there's not just one of them; they all stack on top of each other, and some of them cover your costs over and over and over again. So it's not covering its cost one time; it's covering it all 5 ways,
Yeah.
and in many of those, multiple times over, multiples of your costs completely covered because of those benefits that are tied to the account. So
Yeah.
let's go ahead and jump into full disclosure on full costs in this
Okay.
in an example here for you. So
Okay.
here we're looking at a 30-year-old who, in their case, they're putting in $250 a month at first for the first
Yep.
couple of years. We're helping them reduce some debt, pay off some debt, get them their tax break so they actually have more money to put in. But they never put more than 750 in there. That's their maxing out that they're ever going to put in, even with raises, promotions. We're
Okay.
looking at the S&P 500 for the past from 1987, in this case, through 2022. So you had your ups and your downs of the market during that time.
Yeah.
They're in there, they're asking the question, should I be putting my money in my 401k? Should I be putting it into a brokerage account?
Mm.
And can we compare that against what that would look like if it was in an IUL?
Yeah.
And if we look at the total costs at 1.5%, because your 401ks, your IRAs are anywhere from 1 to 3%,
Yeah.
100% of the time I've ever asked someone, what are the fees in your current 401k? With thousands and thousands of clients under my belt, not a single client ever has been able to tell me what their fees are. List out the fees of your 401k. They have no idea. How did you choose your allocation? When your HR person set this up, how did they help you set up your allocation to get the maximum? They didn't, because the HR
Yeah.
person is not even allowed to have a securities license. They
Yeah.
cannot give you financial advice.
Yep.
So their biggest, for most people, the biggest investment they have as far as putting money into it to grow their money in the markets, they have no clue
Yeah.
of how it's structured, what the fees are, but it's anywhere between 1 and 3. So we just use 1.5 as an example here.
Hmm.
So that 1.5% in fees, though, you're paying those fees whether they're making you money
Yeah.
or whether they're losing you money. You're paying the fees based on the balance of your account. So
Sure.
you have these costs going on. And by the time you're said and done, at age 65, that's $215,000 in fees.
Yep.
Well, what did I buy for my cost? Everyone's like, oh, the cost of an IUL. Well, what's the cost of not having an IUL? Those costs, what did you buy for that?
Yeah.
You bought air. You
Yeah.
bought a broker or a brokerage house or a financial firm that was going to try to match the S&P 500. They were going to try and do what the S&P 500 did. 96% of all brokerages, hedge funds
Hmm.
don't even match the S&P 500 on a yearly
Right.
basis. So you're not even, you have a 96% chance of not doing what the S&P 500 does when you use them. And yet you're paying $215,000 in fees to buy air. You're getting
Yeah.
nothing for that 15. Versus now, by the way, at that point, you're going to have $800,000 in your account. If you actually followed that through 2022, you'd have 866,000. If you took out 10% a year to live on, which no financial advisor would tell you that, they'd all tell you to take 4%. You use
Yeah.
the number a moment ago, 4%, because they have you at full risk still. Even in your 401k, once you retire, it's
Yeah.
still in the market. Even if you try to become conservative and heavily weight it with bonds, that's still 100% in the market. You still have risk. So
Yeah.
they want you at the 4% number because they know that the market could drop, your account could go down. Oh, wait, they also know that taxes can change. The government can change the tax rate anytime they want. So how could they tell you how much money you need to have if there's two variables you have no control over? Market risk and taxes, which both can adjust your number down during
Yeah.
retirement. So they tell you to take 4% so that hopefully it doesn't drop it so much that you can't afford to live.
Yeah.
In this example, I'm just showing 10% so I can show an apples to apples side by side comparison, because in the IUL that's averaged over 10% for the past 40 years with no losses,
Yeah.
why wouldn't I be able to get that same 10% through retirement as well? There's no risk on the account. So I'm able to still maintain those high returns. So
Yeah.
let's just use an apples to apples comparison. If you took that 10% out,
Sure.
paid your 25% in taxes, you have 65,000 a year left. That's what your spendable money is
Hmm.
after 30 till 65. You've put in $300,000 in your account. You have 866 there, and you're taking 65,000 a year spendable out
Yep.
versus an IUL. Let's take a look at what would happen in the IUL. Notice, I'm going to zoom out just a little bit so we can see the side by side here. Notice that when the market is losing on this side, you're taking no losses in the
Yep.
IUL, zero
Okay.
risk, which just means by definition your actual rate of return has to be higher if you never have to recover from losses on your account,
Yeah.
because your return, even if the returns were side by side, 28% versus 28%, 19 versus 19, 9 versus 9, at the end of the day, because you never had to recover from any of the losses, you're going to have more money in your account. How much more? How about instead of 866,000, how about 2.7 million?
That'd be nice.
Now, what about the cost, Kevin? the total cost, the total fees. Remember the premium expense, the cost of insurance, that admin fee, total fees 188,000 versus 215,000. So I have less in total fees, but my fees actually bought me something. They
Hmm.
bought me zero taxes and they bought me zero risk. So zero tax and zero risk means I never had to recover from the losses.
Yep.
I've got the 2.7 million. I
Yep.
pay 0% in tax when I go to take the money out. 10% of 2.7 million is 278,000. Zero tax means I get to keep all 278. I don't know. Silly question. Would you rather have almost 70,000 to live on, or would you rather have 270,000 to live on? Same
Yeah.
money, same time, same stock market, side by side, on the left or on the right, where would you rather be?
I mean, that's a super tough question there. Yeah, I mean, it's incredible, and then you really have control over not just your retirement, but how much you want to contribute then maybe to your grandkids. Hell, if you want to give to charities, whatever it might be, that's incredible. So I'm gonna actually add myself to the right so we're consistent here. Um, but wow, okay, okay, so I'm tracking here. So I see that side by side comparison, which that was awesome. Thank you for that. 215,000 versus like 188,000. And the 188,000 is actually giving me some protections in
Yeah.
place, minimizing
Yeah.
my taxes. That's really awesome. And
And it bought me a wrapper of insurance that I would have to go buy that insurance somewhere on the left side. If I
yeah,
wanted to have life insurance for my family, I'd have to buy that separately, which would be even more cost out of my account.
yeah. And actually, now as I think about that some more, at major corporations, they also offer ancillary benefits like insurance. That's an additional expense both for employee and employer. But if they start creating this next gen retirement account, you're getting an IUL, you're getting a 2 for 1. As much as I don't like Travis Kelsey, but he has that Pfizer commercial of 2 for 1, whatever.
I haven't
Uh,
seen that one, but okay.
yeah, oh God, two things at once, two things at once. That's what it is. Um, so I guess really this is a benefit for both employees and employers if they utilize the next gen
Taylor
retirement.
Swift's boyfriend, is that who you're talking about?
Yeah, yeah. I think Travis Kelsey put Taylor Swift on the map, not the other way around. But we can let other people.
I just want to get the iPhone Android thing going here. I'm just trying to stir stuff up with the conversation.
Hey, me being from Ohio, I take great pride in Kelsey being from Ohio and being a Cincinnati Bearcat.
There
He
you
has
go.
then
Oh wait,
decided he
there
wants
you
to
go.
hate on Cincinnati, but that's just because he's fearful of the Bengals when they're, you know, taking their team down to the
Oh, here
final.
now we're getting into football. Here we go.
Final snap with our backup quarterback, and they barely beat us at their own place. So it's okay. Um, oh
There's
gosh,
no bitterness there.
I'm
I
sure
like that. There's no.
there's gonna be a lot of comments of just talking about this now. But wow, okay, so circling back. um, so really, all right, my original hypothesis was the insurance fees are just going to eat my investment dollars alive. And it's
Right.
clear here, you covered there's 5 different ways, comparing it to a house, the death benefit, of course, the market
Tax
risk, the
benefit, market.
taxes, and I actually forget that fifth one. Um, what was that?
But the fact that when you pass away, it all goes to you, compared to buying a house side by side
Right.
with a house.
Yeah.
We did the your 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 taxes, the fact that it pays for itself on the
Yeah.
taxes, market risk.
Yeah.
Which one are we leaving out? I think
I
we've
don't.
hit. I think we've got five of them, but we've hit them from different angles. So, um, oh yeah, so yeah. Number two is I had to die.
Yeah.
Number three was um, the no, or the fact that the interest pays for itself. The
Interest
number
pays for
four.
itself. There we go. That's the one I
Above
was
the
missing.
handicap by year 4 or 5, the interest it's making pays for itself.
Got it. So it becomes a self-funding mechanism. So that was the fifth one I was missing. I remember those other four. But hell, if people get just one takeaway, what would you say is the one major takeaway they should get out of this? Like my major takeaway is my hypothesis was wrong. If I get scientific, my null hypothesis was incorrect on insurance fees eating away my investment dollars. Um,
My one thing that I would take away was 70,000 versus 270,000 for the same market.
yeah,
Which would I rather have? Because at the end of the day, that's all that matters. For a dollar in, what's going to give me the most dollar out? That's all that matters when it comes to putting a dollar away. I want the dollar to grow as much as possible. When I factor in market risk, fees, taxes, costs, expenses, everything fact on the table for the same rate of return, even if the same rate of return.
Yep.
But when I take away the losses, it means I'm going to have a higher return, which means I have to have more money over time. Now, in a 5 year plan, if it's just 5 years, the brokerage account actually looks better. The 401k looks better in the
Yeah.
first 5 years. But as soon as we get past that fifth year mark where it's covering its own costs, I'll stack it up against anything else out there.
I got
Again,
you.
not as someone's whole portfolio, but at least as a foundation to somebody's portfolio. You can build other things on top of it.
Yeah.
You don't gamble the rent money. You don't gamble your kids' college funds. Use protected asset class products for your retirement, your kids'
Yeah.
college funds, for things you absolutely, these are the important things. Once you have your foundation in place, can you layer other stuff on top of it, be more speculative, do some big real estate deals, whatever? But once you have the money in this account, one thing we didn't even touch on, we talked about it in the last video, was the fact that you get to double dip on the dollar. So not
Mm,
only do I have more money, but along the way, I get to use the money. I don't have to wait till 59 and a half.
yeah.
In fact, the more often you use the money, the more money you will have. If
Yeah.
you want more information on that, go back to the previous video. I think we did a pretty good job
Yeah.
covering that.
No. Wow. Okay. This is awesome. Um, whew, okay. Well, Kevin, I appreciate it. I know I'm going to have to bring you back for more because I know we just wanted to attack fees today, and there's going to be more things I want to grill you on in the future because, well, this,
McDonald's grill. I see what you did there. But I'm
yeah,
sorry.
right, right. Because the mere fact of only 5% of people knowing this, I feel like it's my duty, preaching the gospel of trying to help people figure out more effective ways to retire on their own terms,
Mhm.
and in a sustainable fashion versus what we've been
And that's
preconditioned to
possible.
believe.
Let's make generational wealth something too. I mean, at the end of the day, instead of passing on generational curses, let's pass on generational wealth. Let's create accounts that actually pass outside of probate and income tax free. And let's not just pass money on, let's pass the education about money so that our family generationally gets wealthier and wealthier,
Yep.
not less and less. And it used to be that it'd be kind of nice to have some money set aside. Now it's imperative. People, I
Yeah.
mean, you look at the average, how much people the average person who retires has in their 401k. The average person between 55 and 65 years old across the country
Yeah.
in this 401k that's been sold as the thing to have for retirement right now, currently 55 to 65 years old, $12,000 in their 401k.
Jesus. Yeah.
$12,000 in their 401k. Now, that's for several reasons. People have had to tap into it because of market
Yep.
risks, and
Yep.
things have happened, and life experiences happen, divorces, and kids came
Yep.
along, and college fund. And so many people take money out of their 401k or other investment vehicles to help pay for college.
Yeah.
Crazy. They make things called student loans. They don't make things called retirement loans. You don't take money out of your retirement account to, unless you got Tiger Woods or something in your back pocket and you're going to make a bunch of money off your kid going in certain directions. And by the way, as soon as I said student loans, people probably went like, "Oh my gosh, that's a terrible thing to say."
Yeah.
The student loans are the devil, guys. Student loans are not the devil if you leverage something like what we've been talking about.
Yep.
What if instead of paying for college,
Yep.
what if I was putting money into one of these accounts?
Yep.
The child goes off to college, uses student loans, but I keep putting money in this account. I don't take the money and pay for college. I leave the money growing in the account. By the time the child graduates, there's enough money in this account where it pays the student loan payment. Just
Yeah.
the growth of the account alone
Yeah.
is earning enough interest to pay the student loan payment. Eventually, that student loan's paid off, and you still have the goose laying the golden egg.
Yeah.
And you didn't have to forfeit your retirement to get your kid through college. So
Yeah.
there's so many ways to leverage these when you use them correctly. But again, they must be structured correctly to make sure that they're able to do those things.
And that is where I should come to you, or have people in the future come to me.
Yeah,
And
have them come to you and get the information, and we'll make sure that they at least see a side by side. We'll
yeah,
run the numbers for them, and then they can make an informed decision at that point.
wow. Okay, beautiful. Well, Mr. McGinnis, Mr. McDonald's himself, thank you so much for this. This is fantastic. I look forward to getting some feedback from the audience on this in the future when they do finally watch this. But thank you for this education.
My
This
pleasure.
will help numerous people, not just themselves, but their families as well. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I'll sign
Appreciate
off
you having me.
now and
Thank you so
wish you a
much.
wonderful evening.
All right, happy 2024.
That's right.